I know right now you might be like, this is overwhelming already, Brendon, that's 5 levels deep. I'm like, well, it's 5 moves, 5 levels deep, and yes, I do this for each project. What it does is it makes me more strategically minded, and being strategically minded is what makes me successful in my own project management, if that makes sense. It's Brendon Burchard, and I'm super stoked to be here with you. You're gonna love this session. We're gonna break down how do you achieve your dreams faster by actually planning a little bit more strategically. I know you've got lots of projects in the air, right? If you're an entrepreneur or an executive, you know you're always kind of balancing all of these different major projects happening in your organization, and it can be really easy to lose sight of what you're focusing on and to lose sight of the long term, or to be really good at focusing on this one project and this other one fell off the radar and all of a sudden you're hurrying to catch up. So I'm gonna show you just like how do you break down one specific project, and then I'm gonna show you how do you balance all of them. I welcome you all, especially if this is your first time ever with us, make sure you bust out a journal for this session. It is in writing and drawing out things that really captures our imagination and helps new ideas flow. You know, people have teased me for a really long time about drawing things out on a flip chart. But I have found by teaching and training this way, people actually implement more. It's not for my ease. If I was doing it for me, I'd just do like a clicker through some TV, But by drawing things out with you, it activates different levels of creativity, and we know that from the research as well. So I think it's important, bust out a journal. I hope you keep a journal just for these coaching sessions. That's how you can look back after 12 of these with us, right? Every single month for a year, when you just look at all of your notes for the last year, you go, oh my God, look how far I came. Look at these distinctions, look at these decisions, look at these breakthroughs that I had. And when you capture all of your ahas on an ongoing basis and you revisit them, you develop real character and momentum and strength. And the things that were an idea one time become your life. And that is a big part of why I fill out my high performance planner every day. Yes, even this morning when I'm in the studio all day, because it helps me just lock it into my brain and make it become part of myself. So please, if you're new, or if you've not yet done this and you've been in our community for a while, please bust out a journal or a planner and keep track of every one of these sessions. But it is time to get really focused right now. It is time to make sure that you deliver excellence this month. You got to give yourself some edge today. If the best gift I can give you today is some strategic insight to how to plan better and how to achieve faster, it's also, I want to give you edge. I want you to go like, oh man, I got to get a little edgy about this. I got to get a little fired up. I got to get a little fire in my belly, because guess what? This last week, I had the blessing, I spent time with Brian Tracy, who is obviously, if you don't know him, legend in personal development, legend in business and sales education. Brian Tracy, one of the quintessential greatest personal development programs of all time, The Psychology of Achievement, that Brian Tracy. I hung out with him in his office. He's in his 80s, still came into the office, shot 4 videos with me, and spent time with his team planning this content rollout. He's in his 80s, still going. 24 hours later, I was with Ken Blanchard, who wrote The 1 Minute Manager, who developed situational leadership, who is in his 80s and still a legend. I was at his summit where he had 300 people gathered from 50 countries around the world who roll out his education. He's still developing products and programs to roll out to the world in his 80s. What are you gonna do in the next couple decades? What are you gonna do? What are you excited about? To me, I can't tell you how just rejuvenating. I'm blessed, in my life to have achieved so many of my goals already because of what I'll share with you today. And we got 20 and 30-year-olds who are like, I don't have anything to do, I guess I'll play on my phone. I'm like, oh my God. I just have so much ambition for you. I want so much for your family. I want so much for your team and for your mission. And I want you to have that. I want you to have an 80-year outlook. We're going to talk about breaking projects down and then combining them and moving towards something big in your life. And I desperately want you to hear in this opening monologue, I guess I should call this from now on. These are like my opening monologues before we get to the training, as I know you guys are hopping on around the world, joining us literally from around the world, as you saw, that I deeply want you to succeed. I want you to complete this year with excellence. I want you to finish this year emotionally and spiritually and mentally clean. You know what I mean? So if you got someone to forgive, right after this session today, call them up, send them a text, write that email, forgive. If you've got something that's been really bothering you about yourself, okay, today, by the end of this session, just choose, set the intention, I'm gonna let that go. I'm gonna let that go today because I don't wanna carry that into the next decade. If you've hated yourself, if you've judged yourself, if you're still mad about something stupid you did when you're in high school in your 20s or 30s or 40s, it's time to drop that. Don't carry any baggage into the next decade. Go into the next decade clean. I know today we're gonna be very tactical. And some of you are just like, Brendon, just give me the tactical stuff, brother. I'm also here to tell you the tactical stuff without the transformational stuff inside of releasing your pains and your hurts and your judgments and your faults and your troubles so that you can move ahead faster. We got to take the foot off the brake a little bit here. A lot of people this year, because they got distracted into all the noise, they got distracted into the negativity. I know incredibly accomplished people this year who lost their way. They lost their motivation. They lost the organization of their projects and their dreams and their goals and their desire. Why? They took their eye off the ball. They got caught up in other people's agendas and dramas, and they forgot how good life can feel if you set that intention. They really did. They got away from themselves. They got away from their businesses. They got away from their vision. They got away from their dreams. They got away from their families. And they spent a tremendous amount of time wasted with other things. And if any of this resonates with you in this opening monologue with you today, it says you're in the right place doing personal and professional development at the right time in your life. So I honor you for being here. I really mean it when I say you guys are a special community, what we're developing here in HPX, because the truth is a lot of people don't want the high performance experience. They just want to be comfortable. They're cool with apathy. They're cool with judgment from afar. They're not in the arena. They're not doing the work. They're not striving for great things. So don't let them pull you down. And don't let them have your emotions. And don't let them take control of your attitude. Instead, finish this year in high levels of personal control, personal power. End this year with a fire in your belly to end it well, clean, ready, fired up, motivated, starting off with a fresh new outlook for yourself. I know that's hard, but the alternative sucks. I've never seen that in anyone's journal. Show me your journal. What's your vision board? No one has a vision board that says, drag all my pains and faults into the next decade. So why don't we make an intention to make sure that doesn't happen and take some time to release that stuff? Because when we release that stuff, we always dream bigger. Come in this community here, we're together as a family, as a team, that you're saying, oh wow, this is my time to recharge, reset, realign, get excited, because I know how much you can get lost in the emails and the distractions and the crap of the day. And I'm telling you, the number one thing I saw in this year was really sharp, intelligent, service-driven, mission-driven, caring people lose so much of the year to aimlessness and distraction. And I'm not saying that's you guys, but I bet you know somebody who did that. They lost their way in 2019. There was so much noise and so many new tools and so many new places to be and so many things that they didn't even have a plan. And they let the world dictate where they were going versus taking that personal control. If you need some assistance with this, I highly recommend read your Motivation Manifesto if you haven't read Motivation Manifesto, because that will put the fire in the belly. It will just appropriately, at an appropriate level, kind of puts you off a little bit, if you will. It'll get you going. Number 2, read your high performance planner. I know how easy it is to lose the game to distraction. or to the noise of the outside world. So I hope those will serve you, and I hope to see every single one of you. At the start, be committed to your personal development. That's what I want you to see. Whether you come to my event or you do something significant, you take a retreat with your family, you do something, have a visioning experience. All right, with that, we're gonna work backwards in this session today. We're gonna break down some of this, but after my opening monologue like this, where I give you a little motivational fire, I'm gonna ask you to do a favor for me. Would you write down, what did I just share with you that really clicked? What was something I said, a takeaway, something that came to your mind, any idea that just kind of like, wow, I like this, or I felt that. So we're gonna break projects down, and then we're gonna organize them in the session today. What was something that you resonated with? We're gonna talk about breaking down a project. So what I'd love for you to do is write down one major project you would like to achieve in, let's call it the next 6 months, okay? One major project you'd like to achieve in the next 6 months. I didn't say just work towards, I said achieve. So think about something, so it's more near term. Some of you think 6 months is long term. It's not long term. Okay, short term, 6 months. What's something that you would love to achieve, launch, roll out, complete, check off? And please do yourself a favor. Open up your journal, draw out 5 boxes. There's 5 boxes here, because we're gonna do something that we talk about in high performance habits. We're gonna break down 5 moves to get there. And I'm gonna teach you how I think through the 5 moves in order to complete this is just one project. And I do this for all of my projects to begin. And here's what I do. I do this for every project I have. And then what I do is each project that I have, for me personally, I do each project on a separate piece of paper. And so I'll do each project on a separate piece of paper, and then I'll literally have 4 or 5 pieces of paper, because if you're working on more than 5 major projects at a time, you are confusing yourself with Apple. You're confusing yourself with IBM. You're confusing yourself with Intel. You're confusing yourself with these multi-billion-dollar conglomerates who have tens of thousands of employees. You likely don't have 10,000 employees. Some of our coaching members have that many, because we have a lot of Fortune 500 people now in this program. But I can share with you, most people don't. And so knowing that, especially because we have a high level of entrepreneurs here, please don't take on too many projects at once. It's not useful. It overwhelms you, stresses you out, and now you're multitasking multi-projects. And if you're multitasking each day, every hour, and you're multitasking multi-projects each day, each hour, that without an organization behind you leads to a hot mess, a feeling that often people who are hardworking don't feel fulfilled because they're not actually progressing towards things as swiftly as they know they can. And so there's a restlessness inside. The stress builds up, the anxiety builds up. Why? Because you put too many things on your mental dashboard. So what I'll do in my entire life, we've got 200 employees between all of our different brands or partners or companies that we invest in. We've got at any given time multiple brands that we're running. We've got 28 online courses, 2 million plus of you online students. We've got this global outreach. I'm always writing a new book, shooting a new video, hiring someone here, firing people over there, training people up over here. It's bananas. I still, with all of that running on, I still keep myself and my activities coordinated to about 5 projects. So I shared that with you because maybe what you'll do in this is maybe you're gonna write out 2 or 3 pieces of paper right now, or have your journal open and be ready to write out 5 moves to accomplish. Again, this is gonna be, let's call this one project, okay? Just one, just to be really clear. But you might draw out 3, 4, 5 of these. I literally did this last night, where I drew out, on 5 different pieces of paper, I just scribbled all this out just to recast myself for the next couple of months. And then what I did is I kind of moved them around visually, like literally I was actually on the floor of my Lululemons. Too much detail? I don't know. Is it weird? But I was on the floor in my Lululemons and I was like moving it around, and I had my big markers. I literally carry these around and crossing things out, moving things around and changing some of the timings and the teams to make sure all of this is happening. Because we're launching new events, we're launching new swags, we're launching new websites, new magazines, oh my gosh. So many new things. The new product line for the supplements is coming out this next year with like 5 other products, like for the HPX line. Like, how do we keep all that together? Comfortable Lululemons, a floor, 5 pieces of paper, and this framework. Are you ready? Let's get to work. So you've got your project. I'm gonna take a project with you and break it down how I planned it. Some of you know, if you didn't know, we have certified high performance coaching. So CHPC, for those who are in CHPC, maybe some of you have had a coach from us, or maybe you have a certified high performance coach, or some of you are a coach. I wanna break down how I built that program. Because some of you guys are like, how do you develop your stuff? Like creatively, project planning. Some of you are developing new offers, new sales, new things you're gonna put out in the world. This is kind of how I go about the develop of a program and the launch of a program. And I hope that will serve you. But this is how I broke down that program. And this is not a big pitch for that. It's literally going back to how I built that, whatever it is, 8-9 years ago. I literally use the same framework. So I want you to think about if you're gonna build a new program, new service, you're gonna launch a book or a new online course. I'm just gonna call this for you guys CHPC. That's my short initials for Certified High Performance Coaching, Certified High Performance Coaching. And here is how I broke it out. So here's my belief. Any project, any program, it doesn't matter if I'm rolling out a program to a Fortune 500 company. I'm building a leadership development program right now for a Fortune 500 company. They're gonna roll that sucker out over the next 24 months. It's a 2-year global rollout. Guess what? There's only 5 moves. I'm gonna write a book. Just wrote the opening chapters of my next book. Guess what? There's only 5 moves to launching a book. I'm training, I have an Olympic level athlete I'm working with right now. They're going for gold in 2 separate categories at the next Olympics. Guess what? 5 moves to get her there. There's only 5 moves in anything we ever want to do. I think when you think there's more than that, you're not chunking and breaking down a project appropriately. There's a lot of there's a lot of steps within each move, perhaps, but in general, I will always want you to think at a high level, if you only had 5 moves, 5 major steps, if you will, or 5 major chunks to make that happen, how would you do it? So let's go back in time. Actually, I think it's a decade ago that I decided to create a certification program to teach other life coaches and executive coaches my process for coaching. I had just coached, a Fortune CEO. I had just coached, I think that next year I just coached my first billionaire. I just sat down and worked with literally a president. This momentum was gaining and everyone's like, how do you do this? Life coaching was really starting to take off and people were like, how do you do it? And I was like, oh, well, I have this process. But I had never actually taught somebody else that. So I said, I'm gonna roll out a new program. And for those of you who are just with us at Influencer, this is really relevant for you. If you're gonna roll out a new offering, how do you break it down? This is how I did it. Okay, so I thought, if I'm gonna roll out a new program, so the project for me was, Brendon, create and roll out a new program, which is basically a new business unit of one of my brands. How do I go about that? I'm gonna break down how I think through that, and hopefully it will spur ideas in your mind about your project. My first move was, well, you know what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to go out there and I'm gonna have to compare other programs to what I wanna create. I need to go out there and do my market research, if you will. You might call this market research. I was just like, I need to compare what else is out there. And I need to understand what else is out there. Now, a lot of people know that, right? Maybe you're doing some research right now. You're like, wow, I'm doing some market research myself, Brendon. I'm trying to figure this out. Here's the difference between me and a lot of other people. A lot of people say, ooh, I'm gonna do some research here. They get super excited. And then they go down the wormhole and they research for 9 years and they don't do anything because they didn't fill in this project management approach. And so they got distracted. They studied too long. They, researched and got down a wormhole and didn't make decisions afterwards. And that's why, my friends, project planning is so incredibly important. Project planning prevents you from spinning your wheels. It prevents you from, getting in a loop of uncertainty, getting confused, getting lost. So here's what I do. For each of these things, I take my mind through a process of asking myself several questions to complete this move, right? So first, I'm gonna begin by, let me compare myself to other programs. So let me teach you what I do specifically to compare myself to other programs. Number one, the first thing that I do is I set a target. Set your targets. This might be, for our international students, you might just call this goals or metrics, things you're gonna measure. It's some kind of numeric measurement of this. So what I said is I'm gonna compare multiple other life coach and executive coach certification programs. I'm gonna compare them and see what they are like. And what I wanna do is I wanna target the top 5 other certifications in the world. I wanna know these other top 5. And I didn't know what the 5 were. I said, this is the goal, this is the target. Compare 5. Here's what I wanna do. I wanna understand, what are they? Who built them? Have they been academically validated? How many people have they coached and trained? What do they charge? How do they sell it? What's the website look like? What's the application process look like? What's the actual training like? Who are the instructors at the training? Who is the person who follows up with them after the certification? What additional training they get after the certification? Are they being taught to build a business or not? Are they just being certified on a process? Are there role plays? Are there people who support their growth afterwards? What online curriculums are? I had literally this huge list of things that I wanted to learn about these 5 other programs. But notice, I didn't say, I need to know what all of them are doing in the world. No, I said 5. Find out top 5, dig down deep, understand top 5, period. You got it? This is part of it. Number 2, I said, what's the timing of this? Now I know you project planners like, no duh, but like real project planners, how insanely important this is, right? There are 5 other programs. Guess what I could do? With these 5, I could make excuses for how long this was gonna go on, right? I said, I have, for this project, 120 days. That's it. I said, I got 4 months and 4 months total to figure this sucker out. That's all I got. 4 months total. What did that mean? Well, guess what? Some of these organizations, their programs were months or years away. So I said, I have 120 days, that's 4 months, to dive deep into this research project. Now, some of these certifications might be 6-7 months out. So guess what? I couldn't wait to attend all of them, so I had to find another way. So what did I do? I messaged the people who claimed to be certified by that. I went on a LinkedIn, I messaged them, I said, hey, you've been there before. Could I give you a call and try to understand what they're doing there? Could you walk me through? Is this a worthwhile program? Is it great? Is it awesome? What did you love about it? What did you hate about it? Are you supported it? Are you not? Love to learn about it. I'd love to share with what I've learned in my coaching career. So you share yours, I'll share mine. We'll be a happy family. That's what I said. So instead of saying, well, I guess I'll have to wait till next year. No, I only had 120 days. Third, I had asked the question, is their team or should there be team engaged in what I'm doing? Meaning, is there a way to speed up the accomplishment of this or take it off of my plate, right? So back then, when I was the team, I was the only person, I wouldn't have anything here. There'd be a scratch. Today, if I wanted to compare things, what I would do is I would go out and I would say, you know what? I'm gonna get one VA. That's virtual assistant. I'm gonna hire a virtual assistant, put them on a 4-month contract with clear outcomes for these. That's what I'm gonna do. That way, this can be going on without me slowing the revenue producing activities of my current company. Y'all follow that? I did the same thing with high performance habits. There are parts of that research project that literally I either didn't have the competency to do, like I just didn't know how to do it, or 2, I didn't have the time to do it. So I hired some researchers, some postdocs, some PhDs to help me compile some things that would speed up my research. Does that make sense? So this question is the critical one. The problem that you might face in your career is you go, oh, but Brendon, I don't have any team. And here's where I tell you, listen, we live in an outsourced world, right? We live in an outsourced world. And what's important is you don't stop asking this question because you don't have a sufficient team. Like I've got 4 or 5 projects last night on a piece of paper where I said, I don't even know. Like I literally don't know how I'm gonna do this. And what I had to do is go, well, my team's maxed in this capacity here and here and here. I guess in the short term, we're gonna outsource here and here and here. Does that make sense? It's really important to not fail to consider this. Is that a double negative? Feels like a double negative. Make sure you think about this. That's the way Montana would say. Make sure you think about this. This is very important, you know what I'm saying? So really think about, could you bring on team to make this whole thing happen? Number 4, the big thing I think about is training. What training am I going to need, or is the team going to need to achieve big move, right? What's the training I'm gonna need or team is gonna need to accomplish big move? So for me, what I was thinking about this is I was gonna work, as I was doing the work myself, I was gonna say, okay, whatever I see these other big programs doing, where I go, I don't know how to do that, or I don't have any curriculum around that, or I've never learned that, I'm gonna have to get my training in that aspect of coaching where myself or my process is weak, right? This is the most important thing. When you are building out your major moves, it is absolutely friggin' critical that you figure out what is the training you or your team is going to need along the path. And everyone forgets this. They just think, well, we'll just get in there and we'll brunt force SWAT team this. And I'm like, oh no, you must always be in personal development. Again, that's why I honor you guys for being here. You've got to always be growing, always be learning. A lot of the times people go and they achieve things, but they didn't learn the knowledge, skills, or abilities that would make the things better, more well-rounded, more excellent, more distinct, because they failed to get training as they went. You know, it's like, what I love about like music as an example. If you're learning guitar or you're learning piano, you know that as you're doing that process, at the same time, you've got to be learning about musical notes. You got to be learning about beats. You have to learn about how music is produced. You teach yourself these other aspects, not just the thing to strum the guitar or to pound the keys. You learn a broader skill set of music. Does that make sense? So I literally worked with a researcher who became one of the world's most famous researchers about the highest level musicians. And what he was doing is he was interviewing the highest level musicians. And in that process, what he always found out is they had what you would consider congruent and very timed, well-timed processes for understanding what am I studying over here? What am I studying over here? In other words, they were always studying 2 or 3 things at the same time. They were training, not just doing one thing. They were training what are called adjacencies, the things that went around it, right? As an example, if I'm gonna study how to, let's say launch a book, I'm gonna study the things around launching a book. I won't just study email marketing, launch a book. I'll be like, oh, what are other people doing in social media, launch a book? Now, I don't know how to do social media video like that. I'd better train on how to do social media video like that. Like this training row is going to be critical to our success long term, as you will see us break this down. I hope you guys are enjoying this and writing down. Number 5, what tools are we going to need to develop or deploy to accomplish this move? What tools do we need to develop, use, or deploy? So sometimes the tools mean this is the deliverable. You need to create things for each of these major moves. Sometimes that's what that is. It's a deliverable. Sometimes the tools are things that you're going to utilize. You know what? I don't have a scheduling system. These guys all have scheduling systems. I need to develop I'd better develop a scheduling or acquire a scheduling system. I didn't know I had to do that. Calendars are a really big part of coaching. I didn't know that was a thing. I'm going to have to develop that specific tool in my company. Or, you know what? I see that these guys are creating, other deployable tools for their customers. Let me create something like that. So that's critical to me. So I hope that this is all coming together for you a little bit here of how deep I go into each move. And by doing this, here's the thing. I know right now you might be like, this is overwhelming already, Brendon. That's 5 levels deep. I'm like, well, it's 5 moves, 5 levels deep. And yes, I do this for each project. What it does is it makes me more strategically minded. And being strategically minded is what makes me successful in my own project management, if that makes sense. So I hope this is serving you. This is 5 moves, 5 levels deep. For every project, I'm thinking about what are my targets here? What are the goals? How much timing do I have? When does things happen? When do things deploy? When are things launching? What's my deadline? That goes here. Team, who needs to be involved? What are their roles? What are their responsibilities? What are their objectives? And how does that align with the timing? Training, what do I or my team need to learn in this move in order to master it or move forward on it? Tools, what do I need to use, deploy, acquire, create to make this move happen? Right? That is the summary of 5 moves, 5 levels deep. Now I'm going to continue breaking down each of the 5 moves so you can see how an entire program that's literally probably one of my most game-changing programs worldwide, because all these certified high-performance coaches now, as they're out in the world doing their work, guess what? They're following the same process that I use. And so as I do my daily work as a certified high-performance coach, and they're doing their daily work as a certified high-performance coach, they're like an unbelievable army that's creating this ripple effect out there for me. So this is a huge program that began literally on a sheet of paper, drawing this out. So I hope this all makes sense for you. So what I'm going to do, because now you know the 5 moves, I'm going to break down the 5 moves next and 5 levels deep, but now you get the framework. I want you to have a little bit of time to start working through your 5 moves. So in a minute, we're going to play a video for you on the bigger picture of project management, so you see where some of this is going to fit in. And then what I'm going to do is come back, I'm going to break down the deployment of an actual program so you can see how do I step the whole thing through. But before I step you through my entire thing, in this moment, while you have freedom to brainstorm, we'll play an archive video for you so you can see how I think about project management in general. And then we're going to come down, bust it all the way down. And these are great times. I play these videos for you guys and these often so that you can watch and learn something at a bigger perspective. But you can also, if you want, this is a great time for you to workshop. Right? Maybe you draw this out for one of your projects. Maybe you've already done that while we're watching. Do it for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 projects while we're doing this. So you SWAT team and move really fast in this next couple months and the next decade too. All right. How do you manage projects so that you're happy with the outcome at the end? Maybe you're a leader of an organization and you're managing big projects all the time and you're trying to usher them forward so that you can not only make a great contribution, but you can get a promotion and move up. Or maybe you're an individual contributor, creator, artist, and you have your own passionate projects that are commerce or not commerce, and you're just trying to make them rockin'. Or maybe you're just somebody who struggles to keep to a deadline, struggle with being effective as a human being in almost every area of your life. What do you do in all of those circumstances? I'm happy to take that question. I think the first thing before you do any project is a very, very simple question. And that is, do you truly have the desire to do it? And do you feel like you can effectively do it well? And I'll share this with you because here's the deal. I think most people are doing projects they shouldn't be doing. As a high performance coach, I've spent so much time consulting, advising, coaching Fortune 50 CEOs, extraordinary successful people from hundreds of industries around the world, multi-millionaires, people who are in the media all the time, people who have major responsibilities on their shoulders. And half the time I work with them, it's about clearing the decks. It's about, why did you even commit to doing this project? It's not something you truly even care about. Well, I felt obligated. I'm doing it as a favor. Well, I'm doing it because I think it might pay off one day. And there's no real passion there. And the best way to do a project well is to not do it if it doesn't matter to you. Just stop. Just say no. Reject the projects that come your way that don't really engage you. Because look, life is too short for you to be spending your time doing things you don't care about. I think that one of the number one reasons people get so frustrated with their lives and feel a lack of engagement is because they're doing a lot of busy work, but that busy work is not their life's work. And so they're off path, they're off purpose. And no wonder they can't complete projects, because those projects that they're doing, they really cultivate no passion, no creativity. There's no real deep desire there. And because that's not there, they don't do them. And now you feel guilty because you're not effective. No, it's not that you're not effective, it's that you're being ineffective at doing the wrong things. Once you're doing the right things, it's much easier to be effective, passionate, engaged, enthusiastic, excellent at those things. So number one, is it a project that you even give a damn about? If not, get out or give somebody else the opportunity to manage it. Which brings me really to my second point. Should you be the person, even if you are passionate about it and you do love it and you want to be involved, should you be the person managing the project? See, there's a big difference between being an individual contributor to a project and being the person who's responsible for it, who manages it. See, I've learned in a lot of ways in my life, I shouldn't be the manager. I don't like doing all that big coordination. I don't like the details, the tasks, the work plans. I want to be engaged, I want to contribute, but I don't want to manage the whole enterprise. So I find people to do those things. Even if I'm advising a startup, let me come in there, add my unique values and contributions, kick butt for you, but I don't want to be the person who's the COO of that startup. Does that make sense? So you got to be honest with yourself. Are you good at managing projects? Do you draw joy from it? Is it your natural ability, your talent? Have you developed those skills? Is that something you want? And if not, learn to be a key contributor, not the person who must manage it. Totally vital, absolutely important. The third thing I say to do well in projects is if you are managing it or you are contributing, the third thing is absolute clarity on what is the real outcome of this project. What's the end game? If this was done completely and perfectly, how would we know it was a success? What elements would be there? What impact would it make? What metrics would be measuring success? You really need to have a vision for the project complete. How do you know when you cross the finish line? How do you know when you pass that part where it feels like a struggle and it sucks to hitting your first milestone and you're really on your way? If you don't have a vision for the project, it's pretty likely you're going to get distracted and derailed. Next piece is as you're thinking about this project and you want to do it well, you got to have the calendar in place. You have to have real deadlines, real steps, real completion dates, real people managing the parts of the project that matter. It's that detailed stuff that most people forget. And I know you're probably better than that. And you go, yeah, I got it, Brenda. I've got a schedule. When I work with people, it's like, no, you really need to plan things out to a very finite detail. Not to be a perfectionist, but to be able to kind of know all the moving parts. Who's involved and when? Who owns what piece, is contributing what thing? Who is ultimately responsible to keep this thing on track? What has to happen by what date or everybody dies? You have to have real clarity into that, and most people don't. So they're kind of moving towards something, but there's no real milestone. There's no real things that they're trying to accomplish. And that's why they keep feeling like they're distracted all the time, because it's easy to be distracted when you don't have clear purpose and deadlines. Last piece, you gotta do a project well, focus on these three things. Number one is distinction. How can you do that project different than anybody else in the world would? What's that unique strength, talent, ability, team, perspective, system, tool, thing that you will bring to the project that makes it different, fun, unique, significant? Because if you're just going through the same motions you did, you're gonna do this project exactly you've done 100 projects before. Guess what? You're gonna be bored with it. You're not gonna bring any magic to it. It's not gonna make a difference or really grow. It's just gonna be another thing. You are ultimately being a cog, not a creator, not a contributor. And so you gotta get out of that idea that you're gonna do everything exactly the same and find what's unique that we could do here to make this thing magic. Second, how do we do it with excellence? I mean, how do we wow people with this thing? How do we bring a degree of excellence, keeping everything tight and pristine and perfect? Like the things we actually, like how do we make it really, truly stand out with excellence? Where people are impressed with the quality of it, the quality of the thinking, the quality of the experience, the quality of the interaction. And then third, how do we do it at the highest level of service? So that the people that the project is intended to help or support or benefit, that they really are served. That every interaction point they have with it, they're like, wow, I feel like I've been taken care of. That you're thinking through their emotions, their feelings, their impressions all along the way of this project as it's delivered or ultimately completed. Because at the end of the day, every project has a purpose, and that purpose always involves people. To help people, support people, serve people, impress people, deliver some kind of service or promise to the people. So be thinking about the people. Think about the service, not just in terms of customer service, but service, humanity, heart, purpose, reason, the stuff that we all get and engage in, the things, the intangible things that make projects worthwhile in the first place. If you can look at projects through these lenses and do a greater job in all these areas in one way or another, you'll start to have this feeling that, you know, I've got to manage on this now. I've got to control on this. These things are turning out much better than they have before. Frankly, you'll enjoy doing the projects more often. They'll engage you. They'll serve people better. You'll start to have more effect and impact. You'll start to inspire people more. You'll start to experience what we call the charged life. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that little show of like how I think through project management at a bigger level. What I'd like to do is, you can see I drew out the rest of the grid here for you. And what I'm gonna do is bust out the rest of how I thought through this program and the rollout of it. And then I'm gonna show you how do you actually align all these projects to that bigger, like strategic, like which one first, how do you achieve the big goal? And so for some of you, your project might be, you're working on, you're just like, Brendon, oh, these are great insights. This will help me go faster. And then we're gonna go bigger picture. So I'm working a little bit backwards here, as I said at the beginning of the show here, but I hope this is serving you. Okay, so now you learned before the 5 moves and you learned the 5 levels deep. I'm gonna keep breaking down how I thought through rolling out a new program in my organization again called CHPC, Certified High Performance Coach. So the first I did compared all the existing major programs I could. This is where you do your market analysis. If you're trying to create something new, do your comparison or your market analysis. This is how I thought through this process. Next thing I did is like, okay, now I have all this intel. I've got everything understood as much as I could in this 120-day period. Now it is time to create my program. Actually create it. So let's break down how I do this. Target. What am I going to create? Well, after looking at all these things, what I realized is most of these programs were so generic, they didn't give people actual sessions to train on. What I mean was, when I did my research in other coaching certification programs, they were really kind of glorified and junior varsity communication skills training. Like you'd go there and they teach you empathy, they teach you listening skills, they teach you to mirror and match and reflect what the other people were saying and how to validate them. And just like, I was like, that's all nice, but the coach leaves there and they don't have anything to do after these certification programs. The number one thing I saw with other programs, what they were doing is they were saying essentially to the others, hey, pick up the phone, call your coaching client and say, how's it going? What you working on? Is it going well? Oh, what's getting in your way? What are your limiting beliefs? What would be a better belief? What are you committed to doing? What's your next action step? When will you do it by? Great, talk to you next week. And that was supposed to happen every week. And I was like, achievers will hate that. At some point that becomes really boring and we're not developing skill towards something specifically like high performance. So listen, please, how I think about business here. What did I do there? I said, I compared all these things and I noticed the gaps or the deficiencies in other programs. So my target was to create something that addressed that and did that well. So my target in creating my program was, I said, I'm gonna create a 12-week program. Meaning I'm gonna create a 12-session coaching program. Why? Because these didn't give enough direction. So I'm gonna teach you to create and deploy a 12-week coaching program. Because why 12 weeks? Because guess what? 12 weeks can also be used as 12 months if I wanted to. Or if, for those who wanted to coach on a monthly basis. I was like, oh, this is a full year curriculum or it's a 3-month curriculum. Great, that they can deploy each quarter as an example. So that's why I went for 12 weeks. So see, I'm using this. You're always gonna use the previous move to inform the next move. The previous move to inform the next move. That's what they mean when they say strategic planning. It's not just where you're going, it's that there's a build happening. I hope that helps. Okay, then I said, I can go a little faster. Then I said, how fast am I gonna deploy this thing? I said, I'm gonna create this thing in 45 days. Soup to nuts, in 45 days. So what do? I look at my next 45 days, I find the blocks of time, and I create the blocks of time necessary to achieve this in 45 days. Here's the thing, if I don't hit this date, then I make my life suck until I do. That's how I move things forward. What do I mean by that? If I don't hit this date, then what I do is I go, okay, I missed the date. I'm gonna completely clear the next week's schedule as much as I can and hammer that thing home. I don't care if I have to have a pot of green tea and stay up till 2 a.m. every night for 7 nights to complete that if I go over deadline. But in general, I barely ever miss dates. When you look at the 100 plus dates that I'm working on at any given time, I hit 90% of those suckers. Like I'm crazy about that. Why? Because guess what? When you've got timing going on 4 or 5 major projects, you'd better hit those. And many of you are struggling to achieve more in your life because maybe you only have 1 project going. Maybe you can add 2, 3, or 4. And then you coordinate the dates and the blocks of time. So as an example, if you actually looked at my schedule when I'm on a creative day, you're gonna see blocks of time in there that are scheduled an hour on this project, then an hour on this project over here, an hour on this project, an hour on this project. And those things might have been scheduled 4 months ago because I lined up the timing. Does this help? It's critical for you to hit these dates. One of the reasons you don't hit dates, most people think, oh, I don't hit my dates because I'm lazy or I'm lacking discipline. The truth is most people don't hit dates because they lack clarity. They haven't aligned their projects to achieve something specific that they really want. And so what ends up happening is they don't complete and deploy. And I know some of you are guilty of this, and I have been too. That's why I had to develop this kind of thinking to help me break out projects. I hope this is serving you. I'll go even faster. Okay, creating these things. What kind of team? I thought, well, you know what I need team on this? I need help with doing this. I'm creating a 12-week program. Here's what I really need help with, believe it or not. I need a team to help me with formatting. I know that doesn't sound sexy, but as you know, I don't know about you, I can create a bunch of different content and everything, but sometimes the time to arrange it and align it and make it pretty, that can take me a tremendous amount of time. Not always worth my time. So I need a team. Once I create the content, I need a team, I'm sorry, fancier word. I need a designer who will help me make all this look pretty. Bam, let me get that scheduled and created right away. So what would I do? Knowing this is coming up, guess what? I hop onto, at the time it was Elance. Now it's like things like Fiverr or Odesk or what's the other ones? I always forget them. There's so many other different ones that you can go on for outsourcing. I'd like Behance now for that. I think it's, Behance. I'm not sponsored by any of these organizations. I go to Behance, I schedule a designer, and I literally tell him the dates. I say, hey, I have a project coming up. This is before I've gotten to this move. I'm scheduling team. You see how this all works? Literally before I'm even here. Like, even because once I know this timing, I get these people hired up and skilled up and ready to go. I say, hey, designer, on this chunk of time, I'm going to have a project coming out. I'd like to hire you. This might be 4 or 5 months out. In this one, you can see it's 4 months. It's 5 months out. This is a secret, so write this down. I know it's 5 months out. I spend the time to already find this person and deploy them in advance so they're scheduled. So by the time I get there, because guess what happens? If I create here and I don't have this person, now I need to go find this person, get on their schedule, source them, and guess what? Their time bleeds forward. But if I got them booked and ready to rock and roll, baby, then when I hit this date, also that creates social pressure for me to hit this date. Because they're saying, I got this time booked. Are you gonna get this project to me? I'm like, bam, here's the project. So I get it done, hand it to them. And in this same time, we are working concurrently. This is how you use team. Okay, training. What am I gonna need some training on? Oh, I know in order to create this program, I'm gonna have to be learning during this time about curriculum design. I'm gonna have to figure out like what's the best way in adult learning theory to structure a curriculum so that people can understand it, they can practice it, they can role play it, they can absorb it, they can repeat it successfully. Like that's a skill development, that's a learning theory approach that I'm gonna have to learn some of that. Tools, what tools am I gonna need or create? Well, I'm gonna have to create for all of these coaches, I'm gonna have to create all of their homework that they're gonna give clients. I'm gonna have to create some marketing tools for them. And I'm gonna have to create, as an example, some evaluative tools, evaluation, to see if they're doing a good job. So I'm gonna have to create that. So I'm not just creating the content, right? That's the target, have full program, 12-week program. But some of the tools I'm gonna have to create for the coaches, the homework that they give a client after a session, the marketing tools they'll have to get said client, and the evaluative tool. Now notice, none of this timing says perfection. It's get that draft done, get that first iteration done, make that happen. Because my next move is to test. Okay, I've created it. It doesn't mean it's complete, it doesn't mean it's perfect, but I'm gonna test it. What are my targets? I want to test this entire approach with 10 coaches. So I'm gonna get 10 coaches who are gonna help me test this thing out. That's the timing of this. I'm gonna accelerate the timing of all of these sessions. Guess 12-week session, I'm gonna have these coaches test it in 12 days. A full-on, just dive deep. So my target, get 10 coaches to test with a beta client or with themselves, with one of their current clients or somebody I assign to them. I'm going to get them to test the whole program. Instead of doing it over 12 weeks, they're gonna do it over 12 days. So one session per day for 12 working days. And what am I gonna have them do? Well, I'm gonna get them to do this. And as they're going to do this, I'm gonna ask them to capture, what did they like about the session? What questions did they like? Did they like the tools, the homework, the process, the flow? Where was the question weird or funny or not good? I just build that right there into this program because this is part of excellence. I think in most programs or most things for those who are offering new things, I think it's very important to build in a test move. I think that is very important so that you iterate well. Team, who am I gonna need this? I'm gonna need a project manager on this one. Project manager. Because I don't have the time to follow up and deploy and talk to all of these coaches. I need a project manager who reaches out to them, deploys it to them, gets the information back to me, and in a way that I can see if I can create this program even better. Training, what types of training might me or the team need in order to test this out? You know what we need to do is we need to go out to we need to do some research on curriculum testing. What does that mean? I literally called up some university professors that said, when you're building a curriculum, how do you test it? Like, how do you know if it's going to be good? I called up a friend who was in the military, who was in charge of rolling out leadership development programs in the military. Called him up, I go, hey, when you build a leadership curriculum, I don't need to know what you built or how you build it. My question for you specifically is, how do you test it? Like, before you guys deploy it to the troops, could you tell me, like, just walk me through, how do you think through testing it? How do you, before you deploy it, how do you beat it up, see if it's good? And he walked me through that process. Like, so I'm learning, right? I'm always learning through the process. So as this project manager deploying with those coaches, guess what? During that time, I'm also learning more about researching and testing. Then what tools do I need? Oh, these coaches, we're gonna have to get for them a questionnaire. I think I spelled that right. I think there's 2 R's in questionnaire. Are there 2 R's in questionnaire? I feel like there's 2. I feel like there should. No? Yes? Don't know. I feel like, no? Could be. Nobody knows. No one knows how to spell. Research point, team. Learn how to spell questionnaire. I have no idea. Okay, so I'm gonna have to create a questionnaire that guides the coaches through how to successfully evaluate this 12-week program based on how we know we're gonna test it. Do you see how this makes you so smart? It's not, everyone's like, Brendon, you're so brilliant. I'm like, no, I have this thing. It tells me, a dummy, how to think through stuff. The best thing that you are getting in HPX coaching are all of these thinking tools. You can literally go back for months and find these thinking tools. How to think through your confidence, how to think through team, how to think through hiring, how to think through whatever. We've got all these tools here for you. Make sure you leverage them after the replays. Okay, next up, I hope you guys are finding this fascinating, because it's why my brand has this association with excellence, because we think through all of this nonsense all the time. Okay, now we're gonna move into launch it. Okay, we've tested it in this process. Great. Target. What's our target? We're gonna finalize all materials. That's number 1. And number 2 is we're gonna do an email launch. That's what's gonna happen in the launch window that I'm gonna create for myself. The finalization of all materials so everything's ready to go, and the email launch. How long am I going to give myself to do this? This is going to be 45 days. That means I'm gonna take, for me, about literally 30 days to finalize the materials and know that they're locked and know that I love them in this first iteration. Then I'm gonna do an email launch on them. That'll be about 2 weeks. So that adds up to my 45 days. Team, who do I need on this launch? Now, when I was doing this myself, I really want to remind you guys, when I did this was all me. So I understand if you don't have team yet, but as you go, like if I could go back to my younger little Brendon, I'd be like, dude, outsource more, you dumb kid. You know, where I'm from as a Montanan, you had to do everything. But I never learned about outsourcing. I wish I did. I would have done it earlier. I would have done it way earlier. I would have just outsourced all this stuff. For this launch piece, I'm gonna need a video guy. I'm gonna need an email guy. That's it. I can handle the rest. I need those 2 things to support me in launching this. Training. What training might I need in a launch? I'm gonna make sure, I'm gonna go into my total product blueprint. Many of you guys have, if you're IBP Pro, which is, Influencer Business Program Pro, you get total product blueprint. Or I'm gonna study, the book Launch by my main man, Jeff Walker, one of my great friends and mentors. I'm gonna study his book. So I'm gonna learn how to do a launch in that same time, literally in the same time. So as I'm finalizing the materials, I'm gonna read this book and I'm gonna do the thing. most people read a book and then they go, I don't have a timeline to do the thing. I'm like, no, do the thing. Like, implement, go, make it faster. What tools am I gonna need in this launch? I'm gonna need a system. So for me, as you guys know, I use Kajabi for my system. You might just need a cart system, something. I just use Kajabi for all of my processing, but I knew I was gonna need some kind of system or e-commerce platform in order to launch and actually sell this thing. What else I'm gonna need for launch? Some tools. I'm gonna need an application so that people can apply. Then what I need to do, after we launch, I actually need to scale and deploy. So what does that mean? I need to make sure that I didn't just launch a program, but that the program is managed, that it is grown, right? When I say scale, I'm like, how do we manage it? How do we grow it? First question always, manage it. Number 2, grow it. If you forget manage and you just get to grow all the time, that's what's called burnout. Okay, now that was funny. Nobody? Did you guys think that was funny? If you try to grow something without thinking about how to manage it first, that's called burnout? I thought, nothing? Nobody. Okay. Entrepreneurs, you know what I'm saying, right? Somebody? Okay. Scale. Now I gotta think through my targets. How do I scale it? Oh, okay, well, what I would like to do is I want 100 new coaches in 90 days. Great. What would I need to build and scale to get there? Okay, oh, I've already put that. So 90 days. Then I think about team. Whom I need that? Well, I need a program manager and I need a marketing manager. So I need somebody who's gonna keep marketing this sucker just the way we launched it, and I'm gonna need a program manager who's responsible for fulfilling what we did. So for those who are in CHPC, that's like Michelle Huliev, right? So she managed our whole entire coaching community, right? That's her role. She's a program manager for that thing. And then marketing manager, that was obviously me, and now we're deploying and building that out as well. Again, these team, sometimes that's you, sometimes you outsource, sometimes you hire for that, it's up to you. Training. What training do we need to build and scale this program? What we need to do is we need to look at what other professional certification programs have done to scale. We need to look at other associations, programs. How did they build year over year over year? What tools, resources, communities they build for that? Like, what is the ethos of that culture that we can create and scale that? And what tools do we need? Oh, well, to scale it, we're gonna need some kind of community forum, right? Where all of this community, we need a Facebook group, we need an online community to store their training, we need all these things. So I hope this helps you in just having just a tiny perspective into how I think through a program. Now, obviously, I did this training literally as fast as I can with you guys, but each of these levels, when I say tools, this might be 3 or 4 or 5 other things in each of these boxes, right? This might be 2 or 3 other teaching points. This might be 1 or 2 other team members. I'm just trying to kind of give you like the nuts and the bolts. So my question to you, as always, my friends, which of these things resonated the most for you? Which of these, like, oh my gosh, that's the thing I've been missing? Or what's something you discovered about project planning that you've been missing? I really believe this simple little project planning chart could change your life. And to give you an idea, this little chart filled out almost a decade ago for CHPC has created, nearly 1,000 now of the best coaches on the planet. Because I sat down one day with a piece of paper and I worked it through. And this timing put a fire under my butt to get it done. It was really necessary. It was like, wow, I better get going. And I really believe that many of you are not doing a good enough job in each of these areas. You might be good at setting yourself a deadline, but you suck at assigning team. Or you're good at like outsourcing, but you're not thinking about how you need to develop. Or you develop, but you don't create the things that need to be created or get the things that need to be run the things, right? I know so many people, I'm gonna create a YouTube show. And they'll be like so excited about it and no deadline. And so what they do with no deadline, with no clear targets, what do? They spend 4 months researching cameras. I'm gonna start a YouTube show. When? Well, I'm still trying to figure out cameras. I go, how long have you been trying to figure out cameras? 4 months. I'm like, oh my God. That's one day visit into local store. Go, I need a camera that's easy that I can press record on for some YouTube videos. They're like, this is the best one. Great, here's my credit card. Walk out. That's an hour activity, not 4 months. Follow? Without this timing built in, here is what your process tends to look like. This is where we're gonna go next. See, our goal should be to be able to align projects to reach big objectives, right? These are like, call it, career objectives. Call it dreams. Call it your aspirations or ambitions. And somewhere along our career, we've got to make it look like this, that we're moving towards that sucker. And so here's what I do personally. What I do is I start thinking about what are all the major dreams I have up there. And then what I do is I go, well, what projects do I need to start coordinating to get there? And what I'll do, watch this, please, very, very closely, and I'll take some questions. What I do, get ready. It's gonna be crazy. It's crazy strategic thinking. Get ready. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What am I thinking here? Get ready. Year 1. Year 2. Year 3. You get the idea. Year 4. Year 5. Guess what? Everything in chunks of 5 can be broken down backwards. So what do? I say, okay, as an example, I want to be the world's #1 high performance coach. You ready with me? I want to be the world's undisputed #1 world's best leading high performance coach. That's one of my big dreams. I don't say I'm going to do that, hopefully, in my career. I go, that's achieved in 5 years. What would have to happen? So guess what I do? Are you ready? Okay, year 1. Now notice, here's what I'm going to try to do for you. This here, this is the symbol for what we just did over here. Project. Got it? Project. So this is this symbol for this. This is a project management framework. There's one of those. Well, guess what all I do is? I sit and I go, okay, what are the various projects that are going to lead to that outcome? And it might not just be one, it might be, right, 2 or 3 of these. It might be, meaning I might be working each year, call it, like I said, I might have 5 projects tops, 2 projects that year, 1 project this year, 4 projects that year, whatever it is. And so what I'm doing, is this freaking you out? You can do anything you want in 5 years if you are organized. I know people who've literally built hundreds of schools in Africa in 5 years and other people who built 10. Why? Not enough discipline at the project management, period. I know people, I don't know, like Bill Gates, who goes, we're going to wipe out malaria. We're going to wipe out this problem. We're going to wipe out this problem. And he's not thinking it's going to take a century. He's like, how do we do it in 5 or 10 years? And there's other people who are like, I like to solve this problem, but because they're not strategic at what we're talking about. So let me give you some examples that might help you see how I said, one of my aspirations, I want to be the world's number one. I got to do that. So some projects. Okay, great. In this year, as an example, I'm going to build out this year. This project might be book. Cool. This year, this project, that might be the one I drew on the previous page for you. That might be a big certification project on that previous one. This one might be a major media effort or partnership. This one might be, you know what? I'm going to make sure I get a bunch of celebrities. That's going to be a project to get a bunch of celebrities that year. So it's like, oh wait, credibility and network, outreach, more authority in this space. Oh, great. I'm going to bring together this time, I'm just going to bring together a big networking association. So I'm going to do some kind of big networking project or event. I'm just giving examples. And so all of a sudden, it's like, bam. And notice the difference here. I also am not a pie in the sky dreamer. Because notice, I didn't put all of these in year one. Because remember I told you earlier, if you're trying to do all projects, if you got 10 different projects, if I rolled every one of these projects, because remember, I have a whole other business, I have all these other business categories, right? So I've got 4 or 5 major projects in my entire company. Just one of them might be this initiative that year. Might be that project, just one. I might have other projects over here, like, I've got this major project that I'm doing with developing a magazine or YouTube or online courses here or subscription rollout this year or that type of event here. But by doing all of this towards career objectives, major dreams, it helps me organize things. And notice, please, I don't take off more than I can choose. Maybe 5 projects to get going. That's what we're running. Now there's only 2. Why are there less projects than here? Because guess what? We got to manage those other projects. This one might only be 1 project. There's been years where I'm like, like this year, we have basically like 1 huge project this year, which has been rebranding the whole thing, which feels like a lot of things, but really it's a rebrand year for us. Rolling out HPX, rolling out Influencer. Those are rebrands and launching of new things for us. That might not be, it doesn't look like a lot. It's just like 1 major project, roll out brands, right? So what I'm trying to show you is notice too, the patience in this. Now, some of you, I know, this seems overwhelming. No, it's not overwhelming. The reason it feels overwhelming is because it feels like you need to know all these at once. But for me, I'll spend a day or a week literally just drawing these out. And you're like, but how do I figure it out, Brendon? I come back to this timing. So what I do is I make this timing align with this flow. Because I'll just look at it and I'll be like, well, clearly I can look at this timing and the efforts involved here, and this is going to give me a good ballpark. It doesn't have to be exact, but this is going to help me arrange all these little icons to achieving a 5-year objective. You see how that is? So don't feel like, oh my God, especially if for some of you, you're in transition, you're starting a new thing in your life. And if you're starting a new thing, I love you. I know how scary that is. So something like this might feel very overwhelming. How do you deal with overwhelm? One way, you do the work. You fill in the boxes. I'm overwhelmed, Brendon. No, start with this friggin' box. You can fill in this box. Don't tell yourself you can't fill in this box. I'm overwhelmed, Brendon. Fill in this box. People who are underperformers, when they get overwhelmed, they stop. High performers, when they get overwhelmed, they organize and go. That's the only difference. Some people stopped at anxiety and stress and overwhelm. Some people go, I guess that's part of the process. Let me fill in the next box. Fill in the next box, dude. You can do this. It's not like, listen, you don't start with the 5-year objective. No, you start with a dream. And you come back to saying, what types of projects am I going to need? You fill in this project. Then you take that project and you arrange the icons over the next couple of years. And one day you wake up, as it was my case, it's like, I got the call from Oprah Winfrey to develop a course. One day I wake up, I've got near 1,000 certified high performance coaches, the best like Navy SEALs elite training community of all time in the life coach and business coach area. One day I've got the network of the best coaches in the world calling me. How do you do this? What should I do with this? I've got Olympians. I've got like this huge community of people. And it all began with a little icon I filled in, You remember that book? I don't know, Wall Street Journal bestseller, Amazon's top 3 business and leadership books of the entire year called High Performance Habits. It began, little icon. That's it. A little icon, little project, fill it in. That's all I did. Fill it in, put it on the chart. And I'm just working the chart. So I hope this serves you in a new way of thinking. If you watch this video 5 times, awesome. But if you watch this video 5 times and you fill in your project management grid, fill in the box, man. If you just fill in the box over and over and over, and you align those dates and that timing onto your calendar, you're going to move so fast. Your peers and your family's like, what happened to you? And it's not going to be like, oh, all of a sudden. It's like, no, I got organized. I got serious. I've turned pro. Project management is turning pro. When you tell project manage somebody, they never think it's that sexy. They're like, whatever, Brendon. But when you explain it like this, now you are weaponized to move forward faster. Why is the U.S. military the most elite organization in the world? Because they are organized. At the end of the day, their heart and the soul is there, but the organization and the discipline is outstanding. And I can tell you, it's like they think through these things. You have to think through. You really got to fill in the boxes and do the work. So no more writing in a journal and then taking notes in your phone and then forgetting about it. From now on, you're a person who does project management. And I hope today I made it a little more simple and a little more sexy for you. Because if you do this, you hit that way faster. And that has been the story of my life, the story of my clients, the story of my career. I hope this serves you today. I want you to fill this thing out for yourself first. One of the most important things for everybody here to stay on task, everybody around you should know what you are working on, should know the outcomes you're working towards. Like when more people know, there's more accountability. There's just more accountability. Like you can't see it, but if we walked 50 steps over there, there's a big board, and on that board goes, here's our 6 goals. This is what we do, right? If you walk over to this guy's desk over there, here's his prioritization of his projects that he works. We share that. We know that together. When we're clear together with other people on what we're working towards, that is what keeps it accountable. Then it's the consistency of putting it in people's face over and over and over, and iterating it and fixing it and working it. Does it still plan? And just being in consistent communication. You can't do it once in a while. Like it's got to be a lot. Even if you don't jam or get on the phone or meet up, it's just like that consistent email. Here's where I'm at. Here's what I'm working on. You just got to have that communication to understand, like, where is everybody? Where are all the players? What are they doing? And it's the struggle. It's difficult. But if you're not actively doing it, you will definitely lose to distraction. I hope I imbued you with a little of that edge, that experience of like, hey, let's fully engage with life. Let's be excellent at what we do. Let's seek to be extraordinary. Let's manifest and make true our dreams and our outcomes. That's what we're trying to do every single month for you. So I celebrate you. I know we've got so many who've been with us for years in this, and I cheer everybody on who is brand new. The community is here in our Facebook group. I hope you will always engage. This is High Performance Experience. Let's go out there and be extraordinary. Hey, it's Brendon. I just want to thank you for watching my channel. There's so many other teachings and trainings on this channel, so please enjoy. Thanks for being here. Also, for those who want to go to another level, I have an upcoming Certified High Performance Coach Certification Week. This is where I teach you and certify you to become a world-class life coach. We call them Certified High Performance Coaches. You can click the link in the description right now to apply and to learn about our upcoming certification week. If you want to go to another level as a life coach and you want me to certify you and help you, make sure you click that link and take advantage of it right now. Enrollment is open today.